A memorial service for the late retired Constitutional Court Justice Yvonne Mokgoro is underway at the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund in Johannesburg. Mokgoro was involved in a car crash in April last year. She is revered in the legal fraternity and was one of the first black woman justices of the Constitutional Court. She served in the Apex Court for 15 years. Let's take you live to the memorial service.
Once said, the supreme quality of leadership is integrity. Justice Yvonne Mokgoro possessed this quality without question. We were privileged to serve with her as our chairperson under her ethical leadership. And perhaps because of that ethical leadership, we stand as one of few organizations that remain untarnished by this tussle of good contributory citizenship versus extractive citizenship. We called it state capture in our country. I think it made us somewhat myopic as a country because we treated it as if though it was uniquely South African. All over the world, there's a big challenge of kleptocracy, democracy versus kleptocracy. And so those that champion democracy and the good ethical values Dr. Mokgoro espoused would be these positive contributors I'm talking about. Those that seek to capture and extract are the kleptocrats. She certainly at all times ensured that we knew the difference in all major decisions that we've had to make in the boardroom. Her humility preceded her status, regardless of who she was dealing with. This was testimony also to the words she said 29 years ago, a year into her appointment as the first female Constitutional Court judge. And I quote, "Although South Africans have a history of deep divisions characterized by strife and conflict, one shared value and ideal that runs like a golden thread across cultural lines is the value of Ubuntu. To this day, despite all the challenges we have as a nation, that golden thread still runs in South Africa, and it does so because of the inspired leadership of people like me, Justice Yvonne Mokgoro. The Ubuntu she espoused was not just a matter of speaking empty words or feeble gestures. She lived by the principle. Her roots in Khalishiwe, as we saw also earlier in the audiovisual, taught her at an early age that indeed motu, ke motu kabatu. These are the teachings she took everywhere she went. She lived by these principles and insisted those working closely with her to employ and embrace them. These are such humane principles that we ought to work harder on embracing and passing on to the next generation. Our task as trustees is to keep the torch shining in those dark corners where mothers, but especially children, are downtrodden. We have a duty in our lifetime to ensure that we indeed change and give new meaning, as well as hope in terms of how society treats our children. The legacy left for South Africans, particularly our young people, is to always be humble, possess dedication, and be driven by commitment, participation, and people-first leadership. In one of his many recorded and inspiring quotes, the founder of the NMCF, Madiba, said, "Our human compassion binds us to one another, not in pity or patronizingly, but as human beings who have learned to turn our common suffering into hope for the future." Bagaetso ba Mokgoro, mogapo motona o wele. A moya wa mama o goroge go mmupi ka kagiso. Re tle tshedisa gamba wa Mokgoro. A modimo le phumule dikeledi. O le thobe dipelo tse robegileng. On behalf of the trustees and staff, we wish to say let's preserve her memory and release her. A ithobale ka kagiso modimo teng.